you ready? Thank you. All right, I call the Milliken Town Board of Trustees meeting for February 10th, 2021 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the acting town clerk please call roll?
Trustee Rodriguez.
Here.
Trustee Granquist.
Here.
Trustee Meisner.
Here.
Trustee Wakeman.
Here.
Mayor Austin.
Here. Thank you. Okay, under agenda approval on the discussion section, I'd like to add a discussion on schools in Milliken, including Civica and KQA. Does anybody else have any adjustments? I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Acting town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Granquist.
Yay.
Trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Trustee Meisner.
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any citizens' comments for items that are not on the agenda? If it's an item on the agenda, we can discuss at that time. Hearing none, we will move on to the meeting minutes. Is there any discussion or comments on the meeting minutes of January 27th, 2021? No corrections or changes? I'll take a motion.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you. Acting Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Trustee Meisner.
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Trustee Granquist.
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, and moving on, next we will have the Town Administrator's Report. Cheryl Powell.
Yes, Mayor and trustees. I met yesterday with Johnstown, Berthoud, and Meade via Zoom to discuss broadband services. Just a continuation of a conversation we've been having. And we are discussing having an IGA done between the 4 towns prior to implementing a RFP for a financial feasibility study. And so that'll be coming before the board probably in the next few weeks. We figured it would be best doing it that way. We were also discussed how we would allocate the costs for the feasibility study and determined it was best done by population. So I believe as it stands, Johnstown, of course, will take the bigger bulk of the feasibility study at 41%, Milliken 22%, Berthoud 24%, and Meade 13% of the cost, whatever that may be. So I just wanted to keep you apprised of what's going on in that direction. We're also been reviewing engineering our bids. We had that RFP out. We received 8 bids, and so we'll be looking at those and having a discussion on those at a later date among staff, and then presenting to the board the bids. RO plant, I gave you the bad news last week or 2 weeks ago that it was down. It's still down, but the good news is even though we're out of warranty, standard constructors will do the repairs, and Frontier Water Systems will be paying for the repairs.
It's good news. Thank you.
Public Works, since Scott's not here, they're expecting arrival of the crack filler machine in early March, so they'll be underway with that work. They're working on updating the signs and posts around town to meet MUTCD requirements. We're working on the design code updates and changes with right-of-way permit processing and encumbrances. And we're accessing sidewalks, curbs, and gutters for summer repairs.
Great.
So that's it for me.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? All righty. We don't have anything on the consent agenda tonight, so we will move on to the action agenda. We have Resolution 21-03, resignation of Trustee Holly Traylor. Cheryl Powell, Town Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry I didn't print it off, but Matt has the email. What date was it? I received it. On February 8th. On February 8th, Town Attorney Matt Gould, the mayor, and I received a letter of resignation from Trustee Holly Traylor, and therefore we've got the resolution prepared tonight, so we can go forward on making an appointment within the next 60 days. Given the time frame, we have to have the appointment made by April 7th.
Okay.
Our last meeting in March is the 24th. So that would be probably the date we'd have to do it unless we call the special meeting.
Understood. I'd like to take a moment to discuss Trustee Holly Traylor for a moment. She's been on our board for a little over 3 years, I believe. And I will say that when COVID took hold of our town, she was one of the first that was concerned about people that have less than, whether it be food or other resources, as she also serves on the Sower of Seeds. In addition, she has been instrumental on getting our Gold Milk Committee up and running for Parks and Trails. So many of us on the board have different things that we like to work on, and certainly Holly was very focused on parks, trails, the needs of people, and I commend her for her service with us, and we will feel her loss. So I want to thank her for what she has done for the town, and I hope that she's around in the future. So I appreciate it. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a motion on the resolution.
I move to approve Resolution 20-03, the resignation of Trustee Holly Traylor. 21-03.
I'll second.
Acting Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Granquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Meisner,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're down to the discussion agenda. First item on there is waste management discussion with Wade Nickerson, our finance director.
Good evening. Just wanted to bring this discussion up. Last year, this started for me last year when we brought the waste management contract to the board for approval. The board had directed staff to go out for bids to find other qualified vendors, and we're unable to do that. We have a 5-year. This was a 5-year contract signed in 2018 with Waste Management, and so we actually got a bid prepared and an RFP prepared and got it posted for a couple days, and then actually about 12 hours is all it was posted, and then got to dig. Several of us got to kind of digging around and found that this is actually a 5-year contract. So this will not be brought back to the board. It's actually a 5-year contract, good through April 30th of 2023. It can be, and we can discuss that at that point in time. It could be extended for an additional 5 years, or at that point in time, we could actually go out for the RFP and try and find a different vendor or something. But I just wanted to update the board that we are under a contract, and there's really no stipulations in order for us to break that contract.
But do you feel that they have done a good job cleaning up their hydraulic spills, since they've had 2 of them, one over in Walmart and one over in Settlers Village?
So I'm not the attorney, but I don't feel like that necessarily. This contract speaks to what they are to provide and what they are to do. I think that should be taken outside of this contract. It is, to my knowledge, they are working with us on the spill, and I may defer a little bit to Matt on that, but yeah, to my understanding, we have been in contact with them. They've made payments to the contractor, and so, you know, the town's trying to kind of stay out of the middle of that, but I think the general feeling of staff is they are trying to work with us to get that straightened up.
Thank you.
I think that's true. We did issue a notice to them at one point because they had become somewhat unresponsive regarding the spill, and when that notice got through to the corporate office and the attorneys, they immediately responded. There was some question about them paying for some of the work that's been done. I believe that they said they had sent a check and it came back. So they do seem to be cooperating, and I couldn't find any basis for saying that they're in default of the contract.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I have a couple. So last year when we came onto the board, there was a contract being pushed through to be renewed for waste management. Why were we signing a contract?
It wasn't a contract. It was approval for an extension of a contract when, in all reality, the extension was not necessary. I believe previous, to my understanding, obviously I wasn't here, but to my understanding, previously they were year-to-year contracts, and so they work with the ability to extend them. So I think it was normal for staff and the board to see an annual renewal type of contract in front of them, and me being a little bit newer, I didn't know that this was a 5-year contract. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have brought that last year.
I feel as though the services have decreased for our citizens, and I feel the price has increased. And I would like to know what the cost would be if we do terminate the contract.
I can certainly look into that, see if there's a buyout of some kind. But also, if we can compile complaints about the services, we can certainly look at whether there has been a default, and whether that entails issuing notice and allowing time to cure. I don't know, but we certainly can look into that.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So I have a question.
We don't get a lot of we don't get a lot of complaints from citizens about the trash service. The biggest complaint is they call Waste Management, and Waste Management has to call us there's just a little bit of confusion, and I have a meeting next week with our representative from Waste Management, and we're going to try and clear some of those things up. But there seems to be an impression that citizens have lots of complaints, but staff, I don't believe, is hearing a lot of them.
Okay. So my complaint is, because I have complained, is that they used to get off the truck and take more than my bin. Now I'm having to pay for extra bags of trash. In the summertime, that's not conducive. I feel that they're not doing as much work as they used to do, and the service is lacking. And also, they decreased pickups or cleanup days as well, and then started charging a price. To me, I can go to Meade, and their pickup day is free if you're a citizen, as long as you have a pass. So I just don't understand why we as citizens are not getting the luxury as other people. I can go to Greeley, where Waste Management is, and those citizens have 5 or 6 bags sitting outside their bin, and those truck drivers get off their truck and pick those up. So I just want to know why we're different than other towns and cities.
Okay.
I believe they eliminated the extra bags out of the contract this year,
Yes, it is.
but maybe that's something
The
we need to go
original
back and talk
contract,
about.
yes, I believe you're correct. The original contract signed in 2018 eliminated the extra bags unless a fee was paid for those. I mean, there's nothing in the current contract that says anything about extra bags.
Yeah.
Extra bags without a cost, I apologize. There isn't, yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one that is complaining. I mean, I have 4
Yeah.
neighbors around me that are not happy with the fact that we have to sit out there and beg the driver to please take the bag. So,
I was curious, you said you dug and found this 5-year contract?
Mm-hmm.
Has the attorney had a chance to review the 5-year contract? Okay.
I do have a copy, and I've had it for a while since we
Okay.
we got called to address the issue with the
Okay.
hydraulic fluid spill. So yes, I do have it.
Okay.
And I've looked at parts of it relevant to our inquiry, but I have not looked at the nature of services that they're supposed to perform, or what freedom we have to declare a default or terminate the contract, other than that it terminates at 5 years.
Okay. And then, I specifically recall the vote that was last year. Do you have any further explanation on what that vote? Because it appeared.
I just don't remember. I
Okay.
can look back at that. I don't remember whether we looked at that or
Yeah.
how that came before the
It
board.
was, I believe it was literally the night that we were sworn in, for reference, if you're looking for a date.
Okay.
But I thought it was a renewal of the contract, and that's what I distinctly remember. So that kind of casts some shadow on the 5 years, what are we renewing, and there was also, someone just mentioned about some modifications to that contract. So has the contract been amended at some point? No?
Not since it was signed in 2018.
Okay.
There has not been an amendment to this contract.
Okay. And then if you can, while you're doing your research, unless it's already been stated, but the opt-out, options.
Sure.
That way.
Okay.
and I just want to say thank you for catching the 5 years as well.
Yeah.
Should have cut it last year. Sorry.
I guess what I have is a legal question for the attorney.
Sure.
I was under the impression that a board could not obligate a board that came after them to a contract that they signed. I was under that impression.
Well,
In fact, I was
it has
told
to do
that.
with appropriations, and you can't necessarily appropriate beyond the current year. But a lot of contracts are honored for terms that are longer than a year, simply because that's kind of the way business is done.
Well, I was told that the Heritage House, for example, couldn't have a lease for more than a year because we couldn't obligate the board to, a future board to honor it.
I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure that I would.
I thought it came from you.
I don't recall that. No, I don't. I don't know why that answer would have been given. I'm sorry, I just don't remember that.
Okay. That's good to know.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Our waste service? Looking good. Thank you very much, Mr. Nickerson. So, you still have the podium. On our next presentation, it's the mill levy and tax overview. So I wanted to make this a little clearer for people in the audience and people on Zoom. Our finance director will do a presentation, and there'll probably be some questions from the board. Normally, we don't open it up for citizens' comments, but because there's been a lot of discussion, if anybody on Zoom or in the audience wants to ask questions, we will allow it in this circumstance. So if you're on Zoom, you just have to signal that you have a question for either the board or for Wade Nickerson. Mr. Nickerson, please continue.
Okay. So there's been a lot of discussion regarding mill levies and property taxes. Maybe. I just lost my. There it is. I'm sorry about that. So the first slide, what I'm going to show you is these are the last 10 years plus current year tax levies for Milliken. So Milliken has not changed its general mill levy since 1997. So it was originally adopted in 1997 at 28.682 mills, and it has not changed since that time. What does occasionally, as you can tell, change the levy is the temporary credit that the town affords citizens. So that's why the mill levy may go up and down year over year, is because we are able to and sort of required to keep our revenue at a limit. Okay, so this shows the years where we have collected our full mill levy plus the debt piece, and the years that show a mill levy plus the temporary credit that we took. And that's why when citizens get their tax bills, that mill levy for the town of Milliken moves up and down. Okay, you can see these credits up here, and they don't look like a whole lot. You know, you're looking at 7.5 mils here, and you know we did 0.082 for 2020 going into 2021. But just one little blurb that I want to point out is just the ones on this chart. That's about $1.4 million worth of revenue that the town did not collect. The town let the citizens keep, because of those temporary credits, let the citizens keep $1.4 million. Now, if we were to get into the place where we didn't follow state statutes and limit our revenue, we could keep all of that. Milliken is not there. We return the funds when we don't need them. The last piece that I want to speak about on this slide is the debt piece of this levy. Okay, so you can see that levy started up there at 4.419, and it's gone down several years, and now it's been at 2.496. Okay, so in 2006, the voters approved a mill levy for this police building, and so that's what this mill levy, debt levy, is for the debt service on this building. And you can see where it's gone down, gone back up, and it's moved a little bit, and that's based on the revenue that comes in, as well as the actual principal and interest that we have to pay on the debt. Okay? So before I go any further, I'd take questions on this slide.
When does that debt levy expire?
2027.
So the residents will see some relief in 2027 from that
Yes.
mill levy?
Yeah. If we issue no additional general obligation debt, which would be debt paid by property taxes, if we don't issue any additional debt, that would go away at that point in time. We can't reallocate that to our general use for operating, and that it has to go away.
Okay.
Or we have to ask the voters to reallocate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Go on to the next one. So this next chart, it's just a simple breakdown of where a property tax dollar goes. I'm going to start with the big ones because it's easier to talk about the big ones first. So when you look at this, we use property taxes for public safety. Okay, it's our cops. That's just it. It's just what it is. Okay, administration, we're at about 19%. So 19 cents out of every dollar goes to administration. So this is planning and building, and this is people like the attorney and myself. Town board, obviously, we have a small stipend for them. And then we get into like the public works. So this is where public works is actually a pretty small piece of this pie when you look at where property taxes go and the expenses that we have to pay with them, because they're only at 13, 14 cents out of a dollar. This is where we fix our sidewalks and our streets and this type of thing. The next one is facilities maintenance. We have to take care of the buildings and stuff. Parks. We all like our parks. We like the dog park. We like all of the parks. We like the trails around the lakes, and we like all of that stuff. Well, that's about 15 cents out of every dollar goes to that. And then we also have the senior citizen program. We have some money going there. Then the last piece, once again, we're going to talk about the debt. So out of every dollar of property tax that citizens pay, about 6 cents of that pays for the debt. We have principal and interest, just like you have on a mortgage. We have principal and interest we have to pay on this debt. And so about 6 cents out of every dollar goes to that debt. Okay, and I'd take questions on this slide if anyone has any, or I'll move on.
Such things as we have to water our parks, things like that, where does that fall in our budget?
So when we water our parks, that falls under the Parks and Open Space line right there.
Okay.
Yeah, we pay, the parks pay water just like citizens, just like a commercial business downtown pays for their water. We run our water separate, kind of like a separate organization to make money, and so we charge our parks the cost of their water, the cost of their sewer, just like we charge citizens and businesses.
The public safety, that's not just the police force, but is that also any kind of court?
It's police and court, yes.
Fire is totally separate?
Yes, there's a citizens of Milliken pay a separate mill levy to the fire, to the I can't think of the name right off the top. Yes, to the Front Range Fire Protection District, and you'll be able to see that on the next slide. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Nickerson. Thank you. On the street lights, I know, or signal lights that we've put in, I know that comes out of use tax. If you're not prepared tonight, I realize this is off of what we were talking about, but do you happen to know when the payoff is on our signal light at Alice and any information you have on that?
Alice and Highway 60?
Yes.
Is that so that was funded with a partnership between CDOT and the town, and so there's no debt on that light. We paid for that out of out of our current funding. Now, previously, the light at 257 and 60, I believe, we did. The town did issue some debt for that, and I believe that's been. Let me check into it. I don't recall if that had been paid off or if that was rolled into the refinancing that we did on the police building in 2018. We refinanced that debt in order to save money. And I believe it was maybe rolled in that, but I can definitely get you that information.
Okay.
Let me look into that and be sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go on to the next slide. So this next slide is for kind of illustrative purposes only. I did not pick any single one person's home, but I'll give you the parameters. According to bestplaces.com, the median house value in Milliken is $311,100. Okay, that was the value. That was the home value I used to set up this example. So, a couple things I want to point out. Once again, when you look at the Milliken Town section on this slide, okay, it looks like our taxes went up. They did not. Our mill levy did not go up. Once again, the temporary credit is less than it was the previous year. That is the reason that we're actually collecting a smidge more tax for the town than previous year. Once again, I'm going to state it because I don't want anyone to be confused. We have not changed our mill levy. Okay? The only thing that moves, again, is that temporary credit that we grant when we have more funding than we need. Okay? But as you can go down that list, I mean, typical home that is not in a metro district, you pay Weld County, you pay the school district, you pay Northern Colorado. the town of Milliken Front Range Fire Rescue Fire Protection District. There, I can spit it out, as well as the bond for the building here in town for the fire. We pay the junior college, we pay Thompson River Recreation District, High Plains Library District, and we also pay Conservation District. So when you look at all of that, normal house, for 2020, you're paying about $2,690. Of that, Milliken is $690. Okay, so that is a portion of that, and I'm not arguing that. But I think what we really need to look at is once again, we only went up $45 year over year. Okay. And I'm not going to point out all the other entities on here because we're talking about Milliken. But if there's questions on that, I'd be happy to speak further on that chart. And actually, the next chart's basically the same item. We have 206 taxing districts in Milliken. This example is from a home that is within one of the metro districts in town. So it's basically the same information. It's just a little bit higher tax rate and tax revenue collected because of the additional mill levies, generated by the metro district. But I'd be happy to take questions on these slides if anyone has them.
So, I'll go first. So, one of the things that Milliken lacks is a lot of retail sales to help balance the taxes that are on the backs of the citizens compared to what additional retail income can do for us. We all know we opened a marijuana facility. We'll have some additional tax income off of that. As we increase the sales tax income, if we're able to with new businesses, that will help shift some of that burden from the citizens. Would that create greater tax credits to them each year, or will it actually change the mill levy itself?
So in your example, as we gain more retail business, which is where we create our retail sales tax, most likely the board would make the decision to actually lower the mill levy. The revenue limits that are imposed by state statute would still be in place, but I think we could do temporary credits, we could lower the mill levy. There's lots of options if you have that other piece of the big pie in Colorado, which is the sales tax.
Right.
When sales tax is such a big deal in Colorado, that's why towns, cities fight over who gets the store versus not. And yeah, but yeah, I think when that happens for Milliken, we have lots of options. But yeah, I think you don't have to make your budget explode and just spend all the money. The more equitable decision is one tax goes up, the other tax should come down.
Understood.
Yep, that's a very good question. Thank you.
Questions from other board members? Going around, Trustee Granquist?
I don't have a question. I think just a simple comment of watching which areas on taxes have increases is a good indicator of where you're getting charged more.
Yeah.
So pay more attention. Sometimes those things is good.
Yeah. And property taxes in Colorado they're a little confusing, but once you dig into it, it'll open your eyes. Now that the Gallagher Amendment was repealed, it'll make calculating taxes on your home every year a lot easier because the rate of actual value to assessed value isn't going to change going forward. So I think that'll simplify the whole process. But yeah, I encourage people to at least look at their bill and see, yeah, it's really good to have two bills, have last year's and this year's and compare them, see what changes.
Trustee Wakeman, any questions?
On the repeal of Gallagher, I know that Gallagher established that commercial properties pay 4 times what, generally 4 times what the residential property does. For repealing Gallagher, is that going to make any changes in commercial property?
So it doesn't change the commercial value. It'll stay at the 29% is how it's assessed. That's not going to change, and that hasn't changed since 1982 or 3 or whenever that went into effect. But what has changed was when that went into effect, houses were like 35%. Now we're down to 7.15%, and so hopefully it would create some additional revenue for towns that don't have a revenue limit, and then you could see them bring their mill levy down, which would then save the commercial businesses some funding, some costs.
And that would be the only other thing that I would point out is that our, in my opinion, Colorado law hurts us for business. But if you think about our local businesses paying 4 times the taxes on their commercial property, just try to support them.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Rodriguez, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Trustee Meisner?
No, I don't.
So my last question is, part of the puzzle is income from oil and gas. It's gone down significantly. Next year isn't looking much better. Do you have any feel for the impact on the town for that decrease?
Well, the expected decrease is going to be between 90 and 95%. We don't have, when you compare Milliken's amount of oil and gas property to, say, Weld County, we're obviously much smaller. But yeah, I think we'll see a decrease in our overall property tax revenue last year.
Okay.
Revenue this year versus next year.
Okay.
I think it'll probably, what we hope is that maybe the commercial and residential value will help cover some of that, because we do have a relatively small valuation of oil and gas. We might be able to pick some of that up, but I would expect it to be flat or a little lower than current year revenue.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll go to the audience here in the room first. Do we have any questions on our taxes or the presentation? No hands are going up. Okay, we'll go out to Zoom. We have several people that attended via Zoom. And Mr. Watkins, can you tell us if there are any people that have questions, concerns, comments that they would like to make?
You're not seeing questions.
We'll give them just a minute. Nobody holding their hand up for any questions? All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We will move on to the next item, which was added onto the agenda. So we wanted to take some time to talk about our schools in Milliken. As we know, the 5A bond passed, and the high school will be in Johnstown, and within about 3 years, then they will renovate the old high school in Johnstown into a middle school. And at that time, from what we've been told, the middle school here in Milliken will then go over to Johnstown as well. This has an impact on our town and growth, because as we know, and any real estate agent will tell you this, when families come into town, one of their high priority questions is, what school are my children going to? And adding the added bus time for some of the children to go over to Johnstown for middle school and high school does not make it as lucrative to come to Milliken. So we are concerned with our growth. And in looking at it, it's come to our attention that possibly KQA would like to increase if possible. So we are taking a look at how we acquired the Sappington Park property. We believe it was donated by Brett Hall. And we may be able to come to the voters and ask if they would like to donate part of that property back for KQA. That's where we're at in researching that piece of the puzzle at this time. We think that an expansion of that school would serve us well. In addition, we became aware, as you know, we have a new town administrator, and she's been following up on a lot of things. When she asked our planning department where we were at with Civica, it came to our attention that there was some funding issues. So we got involved in the situation to see what was going on, because now with the changes and the school movement, Civica is becoming a very important function in this town for providing schools for grades 6 through eventually 12. Keeping that in mind, we took a look at what our options were. There was another finance company that was possibly brought in, but as we know, our big developer in town is Brett Hall. He has been quite generous with us on occasion, and he has stepped up to the plate to help finance the Civica process. He's working with his banker on this as we speak. They're looked at the pro forma. The banker is very knowledgeable in charter schools, so she is already well acclimated, and Brett Hall's finance person is currently looking at the deal to finance $4.5 million for the first phase of the buildings to meet the target opening of August 2021. So I've been very concerned about Civica. I don't want them here for 2 years or 5 years. I want them here for the long term, because that's what makes our town grow. So I've asked quite a number of questions of Mr. Horton, done some research. Civica has never had a school failure. And so I'd like to say that we're looking forward to a long-lasting relationship that benefits the town if we can get through this process. So we are communicating with the RE5J School Board to see at what step we're at in this approval process, and hopefully we can make this process move forward. I have kept our town administrator, Cheryl Powell, involved with our discussions as much as she's kept me apprised. One of the things that we are taking a look at is back in 2004, the town of Milliken entered into an agreement, cash in lieu, with the builders that every building permit for a new home, $791 would be placed into a fund for acquisition and growth of schools. In 2018, that agreement was amended to $924. Since Milliken has not had a new school, a public school, since I believe 1960-something was Milliken Middle School, and I'm not sure of the date of Milliken Elementary. Really, the last new school that Milliken has had is KQA. And I'm not sure how long ago that was, but it was some time ago. So we definitely are pursuing the cash in lieu fund fees to see if they can be applied to Civica, since Civica's process has been in the pipeline for almost 2 years. That is the next school. So we feel it would be appropriate to ask for the cash in lieu money to be applied to the building of Civica. And that's where we're headed with that. Administrator Powell, do you have any comments that you'd like to make on this process?
No, Mayor, I think you've pretty much covered it all. So we are We've requested records, and we are waiting to receive those.
Correct. Correct. In the IGA that was handed out to the board members, the IGA requires an annual report from the school district, which when I inquired with staff, we don't seem to have it on file. So we're looking for those annual reports to see the income that was deposited, the 6% interest, and any expenditures of that money. So at this point, I want to open it up, see if board members have any questions, make sure that you are fully informed on where we're at in this process, since it does impact the future growth of Milliken. I must have stunned you with my presentation.
Yes.
All right, any questions from the audience? I know we have quite a few people that were concerned with their taxes and schools, so there might be some comments. Anything from Zoom? Nope, hearing none. All right, at that point, we don't have anything else on our agenda for oral reports. I do have one question on our written report from the police department. Looks like we had 3 stolen vehicles, but 2 were recovered. Good job, police department, for recovering vehicles. I guess my first question is, were they recovered in good condition?
Yes, they were.
Thank goodness.
They were. There was one of them that hasn't been recovered. We're still investigating that one. It's kind of fishy.
Oh.
Yeah. Keys were left in the vehicle. It was unlocked. Somebody knew the keys were in there, got into it, and took off with it. So.
I want to make sure I heard you properly. Did you say somebody left their keys in the car?
Yes.
Left it unlocked?
Left it unlocked.
Was it running?
Yeah. Nope. It was just parked there. It was just parked overnight. Somebody came in overnight and got into it, knew where the keys were, took off with it. But the 2 other vehicles, they were recovered. They were recovered up in Greeley. Mm-hmm. We're thinking somebody just used it to get home.
Okay.
But those vehicles were running in the morning. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the issues that we've been trying to, we've been working on that. There's a lot of vehicles that are left running in the mornings. There's people that have the automatic start, but they leave the doors unlocked. So you can get into the vehicle. It'll take you maybe out of town. It'll shut down. That's one of the things that we found out about the automatic starts, is that you can drive a little ways with it. So that's one of the things that we found out as well. Another thing that we're doing is, so we have extra officers working in the morning just to patrol town. One of the things that one of our officers came up with is a card. We just got these cards. They're a reminder card to make sure that you lock your doors. Don't leave your car running. This morning, we had one of our officers contact about 20 folks that left their car running unlocked. So they each got one of these cards. What the beauty about technology is that we have this little barcode right here. So when they get the card, they can go to this, use your iPhone, go onto the barcode. It'll take you to the website of, it's a Colorado website for auto theft and recovery. Mm-hmm. So it kind of gives you a bunch of tips on crime prevention tips, what to do, what not to do. So if you see one of these, that's what they are.
Sure.
So for people with their vehicles unlocked. Right?
Unlocked and running.
Inside the car?
Yeah. Hey, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Put it right on the steering wheel. We'll stick it right there. But let me write that down so I don't forget it.
We won't let you forget.
Any other questions from the board?
No more puffers.
No more puffers, please.
All right, thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Chief Garcia. I
welcome.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
looking out for us. All righty, with that being said, I don't think there's any more business to bring before the board, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you very much for attending our meeting tonight. Okay.